Professor Terrence Mills stood before his class of 15 non-human students, each representing a different species from across the Galactic Confederation. Today's lesson on human military history had required special preparation and the presence of 3 empathic war counselors stationed at the corners of the lecture hall. Before we begin today's lesson on the Second World War of Earth, I must remind everyone that human history contains concepts that may be disturbing to many of you, Terrence announced, adjusting his antique glasses. The war counselors are here for your psychological well-being. Please signal them if you experience distress. The aliens shifted uncomfortably in their specially designed seats. Most species in the Confederation had evolved beyond armed conflict centuries or millennia ago. War was an abstract concept to them, like ancient religious practices or primitive medicine. Grell, a floating gas-based being from Proxima Centauri, raised a tendril. Professor, I've studied the preliminary materials, but I still don't understand why humans would deliberately harm each other over arbitrary territorial boundaries. An excellent question, Terrence replied, activating the holographic display. Earth's geography created isolated populations with different resources. Unlike your homeworld's uniform atmosphere, our separate continents led to distinct cultures that frequently competed. As images of tanks rolling across European fields appeared, several students emitted distress pheromones. A blue-skinned counselor named Vidya moved immediately to comfort a trembling insectoid student. This is illogical, stammered Dorn, a crystalline being. These machines were designed specifically to damage other sentient beings? Yes, Terrence confirmed. Human history is filled with innovation driven by conflict. Many technologies you use daily were initially developed for warfare. The revelation caused such distress that the class required a brief recess. When they returned, one student was missing, having opted to complete the course through virtual recordings instead. I apologize for the discomfort, Terrence continued, but understanding human psychology requires confronting these aspects of our history. We are the only species in the Confederation whose evolutionary path included such extensive intraspecies violence. Admiral Orcs of the Confederation fleet entered the classroom, nodding respectfully to the professor. The tall, four-armed veteran represented the only other species with any concept of organized defense, though their warfare had been limited to deflecting asteroids and non-sentient predatory swarms. What the professor is explaining, Lorix said, is precisely why humans serve as our security consultants. Their unique evolutionary path makes them invaluable strategists. Terrence activated a new hologram showing the United Earth Defense Fleet. Humans have channeled our historical tendencies toward protection rather than conquest. We now serve as the Confederation's primary defense force. A small plant-like student named Thala raised a leafy appendage. But how do we know humans won't revert to warfare against other Confederation members? Admiral Lorix smiled. An excellent question that demonstrates why these courses require counselors. The fear you're experiencing is natural but unwarranted. Humans have directed their protective instincts outward. They've defended our borders against 3 extinction-level threats in the past century alone. The hologram shifted to display the Battle of Proxima Centauri, where human ships had formed a protective barrier around evacuating civilian vessels during the Void Entity incursion. What you're learning today is not just history, Terrence explained. It's the psychological foundation that makes humans uniquely qualified as defenders. We understand conflict in ways other species cannot. Grell floated closer to examine the battle formation. The human ships positioned themselves to absorb damage rather than allowing civilian vessels to be harmed. Precisely, Admiral Lorix confirmed. Self-sacrifice for others is deeply ingrained in human military doctrine. By the end of the 3-hour session, only 2 students had required removal for psychological distress. The others had progressed from horror to reluctant understanding, and finally to appreciation. As they filed out, Dorn approached Terrence. Professor, I initially questioned the necessity of war counselors. I now understand their purpose is not only to protect us from distress, but to bridge the psychological gap between our species. Terrence nodded. The universe is not always peaceful. The Confederation needs humans because we remember what others have forgotten. Our historical burden has become our greatest contribution. Later, in the faculty lounge, Terrence met with the counselors and Admiral Orcs. Another successful class, Vidya commented, though explaining the concept of tactical advantage required significant empathic buffering. Admiral Orcs examined the classroom report. The Confederation Council will be pleased. Each year, more species come to understand the human role in our collective security. Understanding doesn't make it easy for them, Terrence replied. Most species here evolve toward cooperation. Their minds aren't wired to comprehend strategic conflict, which is exactly why humans are essential. Lorix concluded. Your species remembers what the rest of us have the luxury to forget. The universe contains threats that cannot be negotiated with or understood, only defended against. Terrence gazed out the window at the stars. Perhaps that's our purpose in the galactic community, to carry the psychological burden of defense, so others don't have to. As night fell over the Confederation Academy, the war counselors prepared for tomorrow's class on the Cold War, knowing their services would be needed more than ever.